Good morning. Thanks very much for the opportunity to answer this question about advancing a government priority overseas, reaching out to stakeholders, reaching consensus, and some of the challenges that I faced around that. To dive right into my example, what I'd like to talk about is our recent repatriations related to the COVID pandemic that are ongoing, but since March 2020 here in Lima, Peru. I'm currently the program manager of the Political and Public Affairs section here, and over the past few months have been deeply involved in the repatriation efforts. This key priority links back to Minister Champagne's mandate letter, and it isn't a key priority amongst the top 4 that Global Affairs has identified in the departmental plan, but it is a core responsibility. And obviously serving Canadians abroad and making sure that they're safe and secure, and in this case able to repatriate is something that the government takes very, very seriously. So the delivery of this emergency operation was quite challenging for a few reasons. I think namely that it was happening during a pandemic, and in the case of Peru, the government took very quick, decisive action in order to try and prevent the transmission, and so we were operating under a lockdown scenario. All airports and all air travel was frozen, so we needed to work with the military. Obviously, we were challenged by transmission ourselves for duty of care with embassy employees. We had a significant number of staff who repatriated, and so another challenge we faced was operating at 30% capacity and delivering 300% of the work that we would normally. So restrictive operating environment, reduced team, pandemic scenario, high scrutiny from the media, high expectations from Canadians, and operating in a different cultural environment. So some of the sensibilities, processes, approaches, perspectives that Canadians would hold in an operation like this were not shared with our Peruvian counterparts, and so as far as liaison, that was very challenging, which gets to what my role was in this. So I was in charge of the liaison and communications unit. So I had a team that I needed to mentor and lead and guide through this, ensuring that we could reach our desired outcomes. So I reported to the incident commander. My almost singular task, although it was monumental, was to engage in alliance building, reach out to establish consensus amongst the partners that we have in order to ensure that we could deliver on the repatriation of over 3,000 Canadians. So I had to reach out and establish a network under difficult conditions, the high stakes of the pandemic, collaborate with HQ diplomatic colleagues on the ground, Peruvian contacts on the ground, inside the mission, colleagues, often at various levels, to reach consensus on a variety of things that included flight authorizations, in-country transportation, ground transport, negotiation with the Ministry of Health for the release of Canadian citizens in advance of flights, you name it. So we had to make sure that we were fostering an environment, or I had to make sure in this case that I was fostering an environment that supported network building at all levels, given that it was simply too much for one person to take on, but also we needed to make sure that towards building consensus and reaching the desired outcome here, that we were using all tools available to us, that we were leveraging our LES skills and also our various networks within the embassy. As a political officer, obviously my network is quite large, but by no means is it the only network of contacts that we could use as a resource in this time. So I'll just walk you really quickly through what the process looked like for me while I was working to establish consensus on the repatriations. First was an assessment research stage, just getting a sense of what it was we needed to deliver and how we would do that. Next moved into outreach. Operationalization was next, and that was really the bulk of what we had to deliver. In this case, it was very much action-oriented. And then adapting and monitoring. We had 8 flights overall, and so it really was an iterative process in the sense that we had things that we could learn both internally within the mission, that we could share with contacts on the ground, but most importantly that we could share back to the department as lessons learned, both for the process around a possible upcoming flight here in Peru, but also possibly lessons learned for the hundreds of flights that were happening elsewhere in the world. So that was a bit of evaluation, as I mentioned, iterative. So I'll just take you back to the beginning, and we'll go through in a little bit more detail. So as the lead liaison for comms and alliance building, I thought it was important for us really quickly as a team to clarify our objectives. What exactly are we seeking to achieve, and what are the deliverables? And in this case, it does seem like it's very obvious, but it's good for everyone when we need to work under pressure and a lot of stress to have a very, very clear understanding of where we're going collectively and where our individual pieces fit together. Identifying influencers was hugely helpful. Who are the people that we'll need to pull this off? Some of them will be part of our established network, but others won't. Fellow diplomats, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Defense, and back at headquarters, who might be part of the constellation of actors that we're interacting with back at GAC and potentially outside the department as well. And within the country, across Peru, do we have a warden network? Do we have development partners that can be assets to us on the ground? Police, airport authorities, regional authorities, very, very long list. So mapping this out a little bit to figure out who we will need, and then give a little bit of thought to what their individual roles are and what they're seeking to achieve during this period. Peru's also looking to take care of its people, and these various actors on the ground here are going to have different perspectives on how they do that. And understanding the motivations and interests helps us negotiate successfully and achieve consensus. So I also was really mindful of needing to mentor and build capacity within the LES team. And so that was something that I put some energy to as we were preparing. Next was really reaching out reaching out to establish contacts, drawing on our local, national, international network to gain some intelligence and figure out where we needed to go. This was really a way to determine where some risks may lie, additional challenges that we maybe weren't aware of, and then to give some thought towards how we would take those on. And really the intention here would be to maximize efforts at all levels. So operationalization, we needed to organize flights. So the closing of domestic airspace meant that we needed to negotiate directly with the military for the use of their airbase and the Ministry of the Interior for all of the approvals. Some of these contacts were difficult and inflexible, which can be tempting to avoid, but it's really, really important when you've got contacts in strategic positions that you continue to feed and develop those relationships because they became hugely consequential for us in being able to successfully deliver. We delivered, we worked very closely with our diplomatic counterparts as well during this time to leverage relationships and make sure that where there were opportunities for us to get Canadians on flights or on buses, we could do so. On the communications front, quick, sound decision-making was key. And again, fostering that networking within the embassy at all levels so that we knew what was going on, we had good visibility, and quick decisions could be made confidently in order to respond and manage any emerging issues. So as time went on, definite need to adapt. And identify the best decisions in a highly complex, difficult situation, and continue negotiation to reach our outcomes. So as far as results, we were able to evacuate over 3,000 people. MENA recognized that this was one of the most challenging evacuation efforts. I used and deepened my network and established and maintained several tense relationships that helped us achieve our goals. And I would say, just looking back as far as lessons learned, there really is an importance in investing in relationships early because they're a deeply valuable currency in times of crisis. And persuasion and negotiation are truly some of the most fundamental Foreign Service officer skills. And I believe I demonstrated these, and certainly will use these skills moving forward in my career. Thank you.